publicly available.
And we
And
base
the
commercial advertising
the data elements
on
Targeted
advertising.
Yeah.
So basically, we're gonna have to
I
start
find
publishing the fact
the
that
loss of privacy
we collect these
extends
things.
the loss of spectrum.
And so it's
I know you're fine.
They're gonna do the Kirk's bill that we never got to hear at.
Because it's really upward promotion in the corporate. If you increase a certain and they'll search those databases, well, you have any mental health condition, you'll never get a promotion. But even in my own,
Michelle's in behind an accident on 94. Massive traffic
search
jam.
your credit history, okay, before you're considered for promotion. So if you miss the utility bill payment, it shows up in your credit history. It's adverse to the point. This is just so gotten so unethical. I consider the whole business.
Can I ask you to do notes?
Do you wanna get closer to take this?
Yeah, well, they don't want us to hear what they're saying.
That's how I get on every subcommittee, just about it.
Well, Rachel was supposed to be on this, but she's out.
Yeah.
She's very sick.
Those were very quick.
And am I supposed to be with you over there early?
Yes.
You know, I don't
Yes,
think
come
everybody
join
knows
us.
that.
Everybody can come.
Every subcommittee is
I'll
supposed to
be
be
right over.
minutes.
I don't want to miss out on any
Everybody
fun.
else told me that last year. So I've got 2 sets of notes I typed up from other subcommittees.
Others.
No, not that one, but the one I chaired and the one Grenier chaired, I took notes, so I'm gonna send those to Heather and I'll send these to you.
Hi, how you doing?
Pretty good.
And this is,
Relative to the collection and disclosure of people data. You can.
Of the group of 5 that's sitting here, how many heard testimony on
I must have, I think I did.
this? This is on that snow day.
This was Thursday afternoon.
Oh, I wasn't here, I
I wasn't.
misunderstood, I thought we weren't here.
Well, you're an expert on that.
Well, and I think we,
But after reading it, you only have, you know, it's only a part change, and this is just all in law right
it's
now.
on
Everything except for this last paragraph.
page 3.
So that's what they.
The change is in 32 to 35.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's
Can I
actually
close this door?
29, actually 27.
Have what?
One, the change.
So it had to request it early childhood programs. They changed school.
Yes.
I read the bill, and the only thing that concerns me is this methodology, where it says, Department states this bill is written in conflict with state accountability laws may negatively impact millions of dollars in federal aid. I think that's a real concern. What they say is true, that's on the last page.
Yeah, no, so.
Now, I don't know whether Representative Kirk had an answer for that.
Well, sorry, Andy, could you repeat that?
Well, if you read, Jim, if you read the methodology there, there's a statement in there from the Education Department. It says, the department says this bill as written is in conflict with state accountability laws. Well, what exactly is that? It may negatively impact millions of dollars in federal aid to the state. Well, that's a real concern, if that's true. And that's gotta be addressed before we get, before we come out.
Is that what the amendment will address? The gentleman from the department has been working with Representative Kirk on an amendment. Do you have copies of that? Or a copy of what? And is that the main concern of this bill,
I think that is the main concern.
that the accountability?
That this bill would limit us from collecting some data that's required to manage some of these federal programs that would jeopardize a lot of that funding. So the amendments that we talked about with Representative Kirk would allow us to remove that.
Remove that,
So the amendment, that's gonna be,
yes, they're working on
has
it.
that amendment been written yet?
Well, it was just being hashed out moments ago,
Okay.
down with, that's why I was 2 minutes late. I was down at, discussing how we can,
Do it with Mark, so you can see what it is.
okay.
I'm happy to explain it, the bill.
I have a card here that is-
Just quick. Yeah, waste time. Let's get it over with.
Could I have your name?
I'm so sorry, yes, so it's Michael Schwartz, Mike Schwartz, and I'm a consultant at the Department of Education, working for Judy Fillion, who's Dr. Fillion, who's next to me, who's the
Okay.
director of
That's
program
fine.
support.
That's their names right there. I know I have the cards. So this is the amendment language, which they've crossed out.
Morning.
Good morning, how are you doing?
Good, you?
Statewide longitudinal data system, SLDS, means the Department's statewide longitudinal data system containing student information collected as defined in RSA 193E5. Unique people identifier in the longitudinal database created to house data from 193E:5. And crossed out is any other state or federal database containing student information, whether on contract to or with a memorandum of understanding with the department, excluding special education and adult education database. So
That's an add-in,
that's
what, state?
That's been crossed out.
I've been taking that in section 5, section
Section 6.
So they're changing section 6. So will that change the methodology in the bill?
I believe it will. And there are a few other tweaks in here.
Does it say that in the amendment or not?
I'm sure once we get the amendment, that it will. That it will. What I think we should do is postpone our meeting here today
Yeah.
until the 4th.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense if we don't see it, because you could be changing
Yeah.
something in here and still have this
Yeah.
in the bill.
Well, on the 4th, we will already have heard Representative Cordelli's bill as well, and we can do a much more effective job of coming up with a piece of legislation out of the two bills. Since we're charged with meeting on both of them. And that will give time to get the amendment before us. And,
Because I could support this, that's amended on.
Right.
Take that chance.
and I just wanted you to know that there is that in progress.
Okay. I'm on board.
You're on board. So that will make much less
More time to hear
difference.
the other stuff.
And we'll hear the other bill today too.
Yeah, let's hear it.
And then we have
Yep,
information on both of them.
yep,
Today, March 3, 4.
yes, the third month, 4th day. And I'll probably post that for 9
And that,
on the 3rd, 9 o'clock in the
oh,
evening.
third.
When you come back up.
I used to come in and get my name.
Yeah, or would 9:30 be better?
9:30 be better for me.
Okay, we'll do it at 9:30 because I actually have a meeting at 8:30.
Because I have, like I told you yesterday, I had my wife's state today.
It's already at 9:10.
Feel free, I have 5:30 to make it.
9:30.
Oh, so 9:10.
You too.
Well, I have to wait till I have those people there.
9:30 will be a little easier. Depending on the road conditions, which have been miserable lately.
It's been awful. Had a road block
Should be better.
on their home.
Spring.
The road was closed.
I haven't read it.
Bring it until the 21st, though.
I am ready, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Anytime I get home, the driveway's been plowed in again.
Head on.
Was it?
Yeah.
I just had a phone call from my daughter. I had a roadblock when I got home last night, almost into Rochester. The road was closed for 5 hours.
Is that 101?
202.
202? Oh, I know it is.
And,
Bad road anyway.
my daughter just called me just now, little girl that was involved in it died this morning. And she dances with my grandson.
Oh,
We just bought
no.
Girl Scout cookies for her. It's really sad.
Yeah.
Really sad.
Representative Grassi, would it help if I explain the bill at all, or are you gonna?
Why don't you do that,
Sure.
what you think will happen with this bill, what you think the,
I mean, if, given the amendments that,
yep,
given the amendments that the department's suggesting,
yes.
then, I don't think we'll see any expectation of a fiscal impact.
So we change the methodology on the.
Yeah, we would, yeah. I mean, so the concern was that the way the bill's written right now, we have some databases for some programs that we provide, like special education services or career and tech educational services. And this would have limited us from collecting the information that's required to run those programs. And so it would jeopardize that funding. But the way this is rewritten, our primary data collection, which collects data about all students in the state, all 200,000 students, this would focus that limitation on that large collection and would ensure that improve the privacy and the security requirements for the collection of all students, which we think makes sense. So this would allow us to improve the privacy and security requirements for a large collection, but still allow us to collect the data required for these other programs. So that's the other thing that this bill does in section 18966 is it will require us to publicly report on all the data we collect, private data and the data that's considered of high-level privacy. So really what the law would do is it has definitions up front, but then in 18966, it requires us to start publicizing on our site, here's the data we're collecting and why we're collecting it. And we think that's a good thing, so the citizens are more aware of the data we're collecting. That's what 18966 does. 18967 will ensure that we'll tighten the requirements so that we're not sharing public data or private data with the assessment company that we're using for the state assessment. So that 18967 tightens up and ensures that the company that is reviewing and creating reports on how our students are doing based on the state assessment that company doesn't have personally identifiable data. So that's another good thing. And then the last section, 18968, would then require that we don't collect certain data. And this is the one that based on the change we're suggesting, this would mean that in this large collection of all 200,000 students, we're not collecting things like parents' credit card information or family telephone numbers. And that the department doesn't need that, and so we agree it would make sense to restrict the department from collecting that for a large data collection. So it's really the three main sections. It's one, saying that we're going to be more public and we're going to display to the public the data we're collecting. Two, that for the assessment company, we're going to restrict what they get so that they're not getting personally identifiable information. And then three, that the department for our large data collection won't collect some information that's considered very sensitive because we don't need it. So that's really kind of the three main parts of the bill. There's also an item to ensure in some other law, the last item that changes, makes an amendment to 193E5, and we have a slight change to that. But this just makes sure that we don't send personally identifiable data from this large collection to a for-profit or some other company, which makes sense as well. Did I say that too fast, or did I?
No, no. Was it,
What's the security on the data information? Is that stored somewhere, or is that stored in DLE, or is that stored by a company?
So the department has just a student ID with all the data, so we don't link the data, the student ID with the name. There's a third party that contains that link, so all they have is the link, so it creates an additional level of protection so that the department database doesn't have a link between the name and the number. But the data is, secured within the State Department site. It's not accessible by the public. Even people within the department don't have access to it unless they're specifically granted access for their need.
but how many locations are there for the information itself? Not the names, not the identifier number, but the information itself. Are they just in one location?
Yeah, they're stored within one database server, the state office of information technology.
Just one.
Um,
So if there were a catastrophic situation that were to occur, all the information would be gone?
Well, my understanding is that the state has backup procedures, so if they, things are, backed up and they've done things for the catastrophic situation, it would be states the same way they do for all the legislative data that, is collected, just about hearings.
Find that out.
Yeah, that would be some other department, I think, that manages our
There must be a data
system
collection.
Well,
protection.
generally, there's 3 locations in which they hold information. There's been reports with regards to electromagnetic problems that have taken out electrical grids. They in turn could end up taking out data. And if they're not stored in one location or stored in some fashion to protect them.
I do know that the Office of Information Technology maintains the databases does have backup options, and then to your point, I remember there was a time maybe 6 months ago or a year ago, where one of their disks, their drive to store this information failed, and so they were able to take them back up and restore it, because this is the type of problem you're describing.
My town is, so.
I'm sure we must have some sort of protection in the office
It
of
would be nice to know
information
what it is.
technology would be a place to go.
Be nice to know that it is done.
Mike, is it your,
Exists.
is Neil Kirk going to take this over to Legislative Services
I believe
for
so.
drafting?
That's my understanding.
Okay, I'll just make sure with him that it happens, because I'd hate to come on the board and not have,
I'll
Don't
double
have
check
an
with them as
amendment.
well.
Usually,
we're going to recess this and meet again on the 4th, after we've heard Representative Cordelli's bill, because this committee's subbing both of them, so we're going to recess.
Great. Well, if there's any other questions I can answer, anything, please.
thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So we don't need to know what's in that amendment until Tuesday, until we can,
Well, he
For
went
the
over
sake-
it
for
very,
the sake
for
of
the sake of
minutes,
your
yeah.
minutes, yeah.
well, I can follow
If
it.
there's one,
If they get an electronic copy of it, so we can use it before we meet.
we'll try to do
would
that.
help.
Yeah,
That would be
get it to you
helpful.
next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That way we can go through it and compare it.
Yeah.
And if we have questions, or something like that,
It's valid.
then have to wait till you're here and then,
Think
oh,
about it. I agree. We'll try to get the amendment out this week. Twentieth. I'm just looking at
Would you like to?
Did you just get that one?
So this other thing doesn't need to be filled out until. We are good again with this until.
That should probably go
That's all you're
back.
getting, that's all you're getting.
And the other company, so.
Yeah.
Good.
I will take this back. Oh, thank you for showing up. For them, like, we know what they're doing, with all these scheduling nightmares.
Well, they're winning their goals, the poet said. Winning near the goal.
Winning your goal.
Just about, you know, dying, situations. You know, right, Robert Rowdy, boy, I always told him, says, grow old and long and leave the dust to get. I don't know which person made it. I don't believe it. Well, I'm wearing out there. No, I'm wearing out. No, I am in any way. That's pretty good. The children that grow, we have enough money. Well, yeah, we are later. We're hoping that it's not. Yes, indeed. That's true. Very good. Easy to concentrate in life.